Conclave। पांचवें न्यू इंडियन एक्सप्रेस थिंक एडू कॉन्क्लेव का आयोजन चेन्नई में किया गया। इस इवेंट का फोकस भारतीय एजुकेशन के दायरे को और भी ज्यादा बढ़ाने और मजबूत करने पर रहा। 2 दिन तक चले इस आयोजन में कई क्षेत्रों के दिग्गजों ने शिरकत की, जिनमें राजनेता, एजुकेशन एक्सपर्ट्स, कलाकार और सामाजिक कार्यकर्ता भी शामिल रहे। इस आयोजन में एजुकेशन सेक्टर में चल रही दिक्कतों पर फोकस किया गया। पांचवें न्यू इंडियन एक्सप्रेस थिंक एडू कॉन्क्लेव का शुभारंभ मानव संसाधन मंत्री प्रकाश जावड़ेकर ने किया और साथ ही भारत की शिक्षा नीति पर अपने विचार रखे।
Let me start with just numbers. We are a vast country, and we have 1.25 billion people living in this country. So, 270 million students from KG to PG. That's the scope of the education. 270 million. And so, 270 million students themselves and their parents taken together, it's half of India, which is directly connected to education. And others also, because either they are product of the education or they will be consumers in next few years. So everybody is associated with education. So this is one topic where nation wants to know that what is actually happening. We have good institutes, we have good people, there is shortage of teacher. So we are promoting and inculcating the teachership in students, because everybody wants to be something else but not teacher. If there is no teacher, how things will happen? That is India's own MOOCs. We have learnt many MOOCs all over the world, but India's MOOCs will be the best. And I can assure you 300 test piloted courses have received tremendous response, and we are building up 2,000 courses online. We have heard only ATM, anytime money. But now it is ATL and AWL, anywhere learning, anytime learning. That is how we are going ahead, and forever learning.
Last year we had Smriti Irani here, and she also gave some roadmap to us, and you have given a roadmap which is better, taking everybody forward. But universities these days are in news for wrong reasons, as you know. They are not in news for academic excellence in the universities. They are in news for wrong reasons. Do you think what is happening? I'm starting with that first because people will be interested. As a HRD minister, what do you think what is happening in the university these days? People are not talking about academic excellence, but fighting for freedom of expression, which your government, they accuse of suppressing.
No, basically, if you are asking about what is happening in the headlines in media, it's about 2 universities or 3 universities. We have 790 universities. All are busy in preparation of their examinations. Yes, there is an issue of debate, and there I am always proponent of freedom of expression, but the freedom of expression or any freedom has always to be within the context of constitutional freedom which Constitution has given.
Space for debate on issues, narrowing on the campuses.
I think we must read the President's speech very minutely. He has said, yes, freedom of expression is important, but at the same time, there is no space for violence, and there is no place for disintegration of the country.
So, ladies and gentlemen, without further delay, let's move forward to our first panel discussion of the day. Our first topic for today is, so should there be profit in education? That is the topic that we will be discussing.
So I think with those words, I'd like to turn to the panel and really engage in a very good debate with them and with you eventually as to whether profits should be allowed in education. So first, I'd like to invite Mr. Sachin Pilot to give his comments. Thank you.
Higher education is subsidized, tremendously so. But I think the challenge in India, and I heard the minister speak just before we came up, I don't think higher education is a challenge. Higher education for a lot of people in India is a scarce resource, but also an opportunity. The challenge for us primarily is the basic and primary education, where the dropout rates are very high, the quality of education is not at all good. But profit making is not the same as income surplus. How do you expect a school or a institution to pay good salaries, to inculcate good talent in teaching, to be able to give the infrastructure so that our kids, 5 to 15, that impressionable age group of youngsters and young children are able to get basic education? And then comes the larger question of how much to spend on IITs and IIMs. I think it's an irrelevant question. We need all. We need higher education and primary education.
And I'd like to now invite Mr. R. Sharat Kumar to give his comments.
The basic needs of the country, of course, is food, shelter, and clothing. And the next most expensive thing, or the people, every household spends on, is on education. Because everyone wants their children to get educated well. And that they feel, when they go to the private institution, is where the education is better than the government schools. It may not be so. All the government schools may not be bad. Well, the infrastructure is definitely not conducive for children to go to government schools. Let us face it. If that has to be improved, that is why the private institutions provide everything. Where does infrastructure come from? When you need hygiene, environmental development in school and the compounds of the school, it needs resources. And the resources you have will come from private institutions, and they have money to spend on them. And when they spend, there's got to be a little more profit. If not, they won't have the incentive to spend money on them.
Let me quickly open up the floor.
Why not we have a system wherein the talent of the child is identified and given fillip so that they develop and stand on their own leg?
I think you're right, sir, but first let's tackle the issue at hand. Literacy and education are two different things. We are struggling to make our young population literate. And you're right, young minds, some of them are not trained to mug up, and our education system needs to be challenged and changed to a point. But I think that's a secondary question. I think it's important. We must address it at some point.
The next topic of discussion is very interesting. It's something that I'm most keen to listen to. And the topic is, how do you navigate a non-traditional career path?
To give you an idea about why we're going to have this chat is, how many of us have had this question asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? Everybody will ask you this question. Everybody will, really look at you very strangely when you give the answer, no matter how conventional or non-conventional your answer is. There's always going to be some kind of doubt that people have. And the doubt functions on two levels. A, which people have. B, it's a self-doubt also. So it's not a very easy thing, and at the same time, it's not a very difficult thing. So let's just start by, asking Reema ji, what made her do what she did, and how is it that she decided to join the services?
When a man wants to take up a job which is traditionally done by a woman, like nursing, teaching, and social work, his sexuality is questioned. And when a woman wants to take up a job in fields like science, technology, more importantly, security, her everything is questioned, whether she has the brains, whether she has the stamina, whether she can work her way up. There are so many ifs and buts. But ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, where there is a will, there is a way. So today, the most important institutional change I would like to endorse through this panel here is that career planning should not be based on gender stereotyping. So there's to be a lot to be done at the level of education, at the level of policy making, to invite more and more women to join the forces and to increase the gender sensitivity of the force. And this is not just for the security forces. I'm sure this applies to all the fields, irrespective of the field.
Next speaker needs no introduction. If people think that it had been easy for Ayan and his brother to become what they have achieved and to what they have become, it's not easy. To be under the shadow of one of the greatest classical musical exponents of this country, and to have him as a father, it's not an easy task, but at the same time, it's the perfect school that somebody looking to have a career in that aspect can be blessed with. But it's very difficult to be able to express yourself. You know, when your whole, dare I say, yardstick or the benchmark for achievements is the person closest to you. So over to Ayan.
To start with, any journey, especially when it's a creative journey, it has to be passion driven. I think that is the main mantra. I think passion is the thing that keeps you going. And if you don't have passion for the craft you're in, especially if it's a creative field, then I think one has to rethink. One should do a retrospect and redecide what they want to do. A creative field is uncertain. You only know that you don't know. You don't know what will work. You don't know what will not work. So I think it was the passion that I followed. I went by what my heart said. At the end of the day, I think it's all a combination perhaps of practice, at some level, your destiny, and also blessings. I think that's something that I really value.
Touching upon passion, at the end of the day, that is the foundation that no matter what you're doing, that is the foundation on which a life or a career is built. And like Ayan said, if you don't have passion, it shows. And this is something that Michael can really shed some great light on, because, the passion that you have and the field that you selected, they kind of grew both at the same time in this country. Taking from there, please.
My dad used to paint a lot. My mother used to paint a lot. And somehow they kind of opened the right doors, and by chance I hit upon NID, and I happened to navigate down to product design. And, at that point in time, the field was not known as well, and no one would really advise you much on what you could do in that space. I think today all of you are really fortunate to have the entire world to you in terms of what is available. I think what was non-traditional then is traditional today, and it's, design is no longer a discipline that you take on if you weren't, say, good enough in something else, and it's really a mainstream thing today.
So let's open it up. If there's anything that you would like to ask any one of us, please do.
Now, how do we educate our parents, or any parent for that matter, as to how to encourage their children to choose non-traditional, a career goal or a career path? Like, how do we ensure that there's a change in the mindset of the parents even now and in the future, so that non-traditional paths are taken up by more children and more students in the future?
That word, risk, is what you have to take, because, you see, there's so many aspects to this. I completely understand sometimes parents watching out for the child and also watching out for the family. If they are hoping the child is the only, bread earner in the years to come, then how will this work out? What will happen? Because, if I stick only to the creative fields, like I said earlier, you don't know. So I think the basic education should definitely happen, because at least you have something to fall back on.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we move forward to our next panel discussion. The topic for this discussion will be, how can a Make in India education be made aspirational?
Discussing aspiration of education. I was thinking about my college days, where I had a very good English teacher who is a very famous Malayalam poet. Some of you might have known about him, Professor K. Sachidanandan, the former secretary of Kendra Sahitya Academy. He wrote a poem on education system in Malayalam. 2 lines stands like this: those who are sleeping in the classrooms are fortunate, because they would not lose at least their own dreams. Now we are discussing Make in India. The last 25 years we are discussing globalization. Now Prime Minister Modi ji called for making India. The American president, his slogan, America for Americans. Brexit is the influence slogan in the European sector. Then I think a new word should be come into the terminology, that is deglobalization. The era of deglobalization, I think, just started now.
The genesis of Make in India is because of a confidence building measure late 2014, when almost all the countries were struggling. After the financial crisis, you had the Anglo-Saxon economy struggling. The concept of these emerging economies kind of started cracking. And the acronym BRICS nation, maybe India was also discounted as part of this fragile group. But we couldn't afford to be dismissed as being the world's largest democracy, a country of risk and not opportunities. And that's why this Make in India idea, this grand idea, was kind of a confidence building measure that ran across different clusters of the economy. And though it did not specifically have the word education in all those clusters, the reason is very simple, because the common thread that connects all these economic clusters and industry clusters, which form the foundation of the Make in India idea, is education, because it is the product of this educational system that is going to make this grand idea true. And that is why I feel that this topic is more appropriate, considering that it's going to cut across the entire spectrum of this grand idea, Make in India.
May I invite Mr. Chandrasekharan, Chairman Tata Sons. He'll be delivering a keynote address on the topic, Pushing the Frontiers of Indian Education, which is also the theme of this year's Conclave.
So I think to start with about 250 million children studying in about 1.5 million schools, India is probably the largest education system in the world. If not the largest, it is one of the 2-3 largest ecosystems in the world. A number of initiatives have been taken by governments, and all of those have helped to move things forward. And especially with the right to education, we have been able to make progress on the enrollment of children in schools. And that number today is a credible number. But we have very large problems. We can talk about a number of problems in our education system, especially when you look at the future. But at least two of those I would like to highlight. The first one, I think if I ask each one of you individually, you will all say that the quality of learning is going down. And we hear about it every day. The second problem is access. We are a very complex country, and we have 650,000 villages. So the access to education is not available uniformly, and in many places barely available. Along with that access, there is a huge shortage of teachers. We talk about it all the time. The quality of teaching going down. We don't have access to teachers, and even the teachers we have, if you really measure the quality of teaching, then that's also going down. So these are two very fundamental problems. On the other side, we cannot look at solving the education problem on its own. Every country will say today, our education system needs to be fixed. You go to America, they say the same thing. STEM, we don't have STEM skills. You go to UK, they say the same thing. Every country you go today, they say we have to fix our education system. Either in terms of affordability or in terms of our people are studying only liberal arts. They are not getting into science and math. All these jobs are going to Indians and Chinese and Koreans. So this is a problem in every nation. But the urgency with which we have to fix is a lot more than any other nation.